So, hello everyone and welcome back to another video. And yeah, today I have to bring you bad news because the HD 7770 GHz edition has died. Um, and it's again like the other cards. It's like if I would have killed it with a Vault mod or something, I wouldn't be mad. I am mad because it just died like that. I didn't do anything to it. Like, okay, I painted it, but I actually did that after it died. Um, yeah. So the card died just like that. Pretty much the same as my 780 Ti and the 560 Ti 448, and okay, the 470 I might actually have killed that, but again, I can't really know. So yeah, I've got another dead card, and I didn't do anything. It's just dead. So as of now, if you put the card in, you get a B2 postcode, and yeah, that's it. It only says B2 postcode and nothing else. So pretty much the card, like, it can't even initialize. The card is toast, completely toast. It's gone. And yeah, I guess let's just let me just talk about what basically went down with the card, what I did to it, trying, like, what things I did trying to save it, and how I might still bring it back, but the chances are not good. So basically, this card, I overclocked it a bunch, I ran benchmarks with it, it ran pretty decently, I guess. The memory was not that great, the core was pretty good. And then one day I decided to make a hardware bot, HW bot submission with the card running, like, apart from the paint, it's completely stock. Well, actually, right now it's not completely stock. I did some slight modifications while trying to bring it back, but you see there are no wires attached, no potentiometers, no extra capacitors. The card is pretty much as it was, just that I slapped some paint and plastic dip onto it, like, yeah. And so I decided to make a submission to HW bot, running Firestrike with this thing because it just a 1-a-day submission. That's like the baseline, like the best the card can do without any mods. And the card is actually pretty decent. It got me to 9th place on HW bot, and actually the card should have gotten a lot more score because there is another card that's running lower clocks for both core and memory, and that has a higher score than mine has. So I guess I can still optimize a lot of things in Windows to make it score higher. But as I ran it, 9th place, HW bot, 3,920 points, I think. At some point it spat out a 3,990-ish score, but I didn't screenshot that because I'm a dummy. So yeah, 3,920-ish it is. 9th place on HW bot, ran it with the 1800X. Yeah, graphics score should have been around 4,000. I actually don't know. Well, yeah, the card was pretty decent. The core actually was really, really good. In the entire HW bot Firestrike ranking, there's only a single HD 7770 that's running a higher core clock than I am. Like, from the ambient cards, they're H2O and below ambient cards that run higher core clocks, but from the ambient, like, air-cooled cards, this one is the second highest for core clock. The only card that's running a 5 MHz higher core clock is the card of the one and only Bullzoid. It's actually his Vapor X HD 7770, which has mods, like he made a video about it. It has a VCore mod. So yeah, mine doesn't need that and still gets to 1320 MHz. And actually, the score that I didn't screenshot was actually with 1337 MHz, which is higher than Bullzoid's clock. And it was pretty unstable, but it still finished the benchmark and gave me its score, so it's hardware bot legal. Didn't screenshot it though. So yeah, the core is pretty good, at least based on what I see in the ranking. And then the memory is, yeah. I'm beginning to think that literally all HD 7770s have LPDA memory because I couldn't see a single one without it in the hardware bot ranking. So yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I guess the cheaper cards get the worse memory. But yeah, there were a lot of 1600 megahertz cards in HW bot. This one still only ever did 1450 megahertz. I was able to bring it to 1475, 1480, which was really unstable, but sometimes it finished benchmarks. But that's pretty much it. And yeah, so I submitted the score. And while I was trying to get the score, I noticed that the card gave me a lower score with the same clocks as before. And I was like, okay, kind of weird. Maybe run it again. And then it crashed. And then I thought, okay, why does it crash now? And then I reverted to stock settings and it crashed at the same time in the benchmark. So at this point I thought, okay, it must be something Windowsy or something in the graphics driver. So I DDU'd and reinstalled the graphics driver, ran the benchmark. And yeah, that's how I got my score for HWBot. And then after that I tried replicating the score, the higher score that I had before, and I just couldn't get it to pass the benchmark anymore. So it would just crash pretty much instantly. And the funny thing is, every time it crashed at the higher clocks, it would also immediately crash at the same time on stock clocks. So kind of weird behavior, and I DDU'd a lot of times until I finally gave up and said, okay, maybe my room is warmer now than the time when I did the higher score. Let me try next day. Yeah, and then the next day I tried again. And at this point, the card exhibited problems, like really big problems. So the card wouldn't run stock anymore, and DDUing would only fix it for about 2 runs. The third one would crash. And it would crash in graphics test 1 with memory artifacts, which is weird because graphics test 1 is core heavy and graphics test 2 is memory heavy. But I never got to graphics test 2 again. It would always crash in graphics test 1, regardless of what clock I would set. And yeah, so that was kind of weird. And then the card began giving me B2 on boot up. Resetting CMOS solved that actually. Like sometimes it gave me B2, sometimes it gave me another postcode error that's GPU related, sometimes it just booted up. And when it would boot up, it would pretty much immediately artifact. It would even artifact on the select boot operating system screen. And at that point, I kind of realized that the card might be screwed. So, yeah. And I came up with an idea what to do, because the card crashing, like I saw some weird stuff with that MS Afterburner wouldn't set the voltage correctly or something, so I thought, okay, the card is kind of weird and glitchy. Sometimes it runs, sometimes it doesn't. That doesn't seem like instability or degradation to me, because that would just always crash. So I thought, okay, this card is pretty old. Maybe it's this this is the BIOS chip. Maybe it's the BIOS chip right here that has just data rot. Like that's a thing that can happen when you have like a BIOS chip and there's just some data stored in it for a long time. That data can become bad, so to say. It can begin to rot. And so I decided to flash another BIOS onto the chip to like put a new set of data onto it that's new and not bad in any shape or form. And yeah, and then I found a compatible BIOS. I flashed it. At the time I successfully flashed the card, it was getting steadily worse in terms of being able to boot up. It began crashing more often, it began artifacting more often, it would crash in safe mode, it would crash on desktop. Benchmarks wouldn't even start anymore, even on stock settings, and yeah, so I finally managed to flash the BIOS chip using AMD VB Flash. So that one has a bunch of redundancy measures and security systems, like it checks if the BIOS is compatible, because a lot of BIOSes that should have been compatible because they were specifically for this card actually failed to flash because it found some kind of incompatibility, until I found one that until I found one that was compatible, and that one flashed successfully. And I restarted, and at that point the card was gone. Might have been the BIOS flash. I don't think that the flash itself was a problem. I think the BIOS chip is just dead. So at that point the card would only give me a B2. Nothing else. Always just B2 postcode error. And yeah, so the card can't even initialize anymore. I checked all the voltages, which is like I put the black markings on here. I checked vCore, that was good. I checked VDCI, that was good. I checked vmem, that was good. I even checked the PEX rail, that was good. I even checked this 5-volt LDO over here, that was also good. And at that point I checked every single voltage that is on this card. And they were all good. And still B2 postcode error. I even checked if the BIOS chip gets its 3.3 volt power state from the PCIe slot. It does. The BIOS chip gets power. And yeah. So still B2 postcode error. And so at that point I thought, okay, there are two things that I can do. Actually, three things. But the first two things I thought of is, my friend does have a clamp for reprogramming BIOS chips. Maybe the flash itself was bad. So maybe manually flashing it with like a clamp that you put on the card might fix it. And so yeah, that might be a fix. And the other thing is, because it memory artifacted all over the place, I thought about, okay, maybe the memory chips are degrading because they clocked pretty bad from the beginning, and the card actually did some memory artifact looking things from the beginning. I just thought that's okay, that's AMD drivers, I guess, because my RX 70, which is fine, like doesn't have any problems, that artifacts too in certain, like if you start a full screen application, it shows you some weird colors sometimes. This one did that too, and I just dismissed it as AMD drivers, because that was the issue with the RX 70, like a new driver fixed the issue. And so yeah, I thought maybe the memory chips are just degrading, and I'm gonna give them more voltage. And I found a Russian website that was talking about overclocking HD 70s and 70s and like modding them. And yeah, with the powers of Google Translator, I was able to read what they were saying. And basically, like, you could do a normal volt mod, but my potentiometers are still not here. So I can do another thing, which is a pencil mod, which is a really janky thing, but it still works. So basically how that works is, here is the PWM controller for vmem, and you can see those little resistors below the PWM controller. Those are in the feedback circuit, and those three resistors on the left, they set the resistance of the feedback circuit. And after the same logic, like you would do with a normal volt mod, if you lower that resistance, the voltage gets higher, because the PWM controller now sees less voltage in the feedback circuit and therefore thinks that the VRM is outputting voltage that is lower than it actually is. And if you have a graphite pencil, you can just you can see the resistor on the far left. I modded that one actually. If you put a thin graphite layer over that resistor, you can lower the resistance and make it put out a higher voltage. So I pencil modded the vmem rail, actually pencil modded a lot more rails also. So I modded vmem to put out 1.7 volts instead of 1.5, which didn't do anything. B2 still. Then I took vCore and made it to put out 1.35 or 1.4 volts. Also no impact. That one also has like, that one is this empty solder pad right here. You should see the graphite layer. And then I took this right here is the PWM controller for VPEX. And I also pencil modded that one. Actually don't know which of the resistors I modded, but I also pencil modded this one to put out a slightly higher voltage. I also didn't do anything. Then I wanted to also pencil mod VDDCI because it could also be just a memory controller, not the memory itself. But yeah, I didn't do that because my multimeter was giving me some weird resistance readings on the feedback circuit, and without a proper resistance reading, I can't determine how much voltage it's gonna put out. And because memory controllers are pretty much very fragile, if I shoot 1.3 volts into the memory controller, the card is gone, no matter what the issue is currently. So yeah, I didn't volt mod that one. Might still try that, though. So yeah, so at this point I was thinking, okay, it's gotta be the BIOS chip. It's either the flash was bad or the chip itself has a problem because it's just not initiating, even though I have all the voltages and raising the voltages, which should help with any kind of degradation, doesn't help. Yeah, so that's that. And then I was on the Linus Tech Tips Discord again, the overclocking channel, and someone recommended me something that I could also do, which is pretty much the classic thing of just bake it, but not in the brutal way that people do it, in a more humane way that actually revives cards. The thing is basically just give it a power scrubbing. So I cleaned it with cleaning petrol, then I gave it a bath, let it dry, put it in the oven at 100 degrees to really dry it. And that could be a possible fix. It still didn't work. And then after that, I was told to just take a heat gun and point it to the card for 20 to 30 seconds. I still have to do that, but I kind of doubt that it's the thing, because I really, really think it's the BIOS chip. Because bad, like broken VRAM, which is what I would suspect, or broken memory controller, I think the card would still initialize. It would just artifact all over the place. So the card not even initializing kind of tells me it's the BIOS chip. So yeah, I mean, I could try the heat gun thing, but I think it's the BIOS chip. And so I could either try to reprogram it manually with the clamp that my friend has, if he comes over ever. So that would take a long time. Or I order one for myself, but that might also take a while because they are sent from China, and yeah, world is still in lockdown. So yeah, that might take a while. Or like if the BIOS chip is completely broken, I could also order a new one and then solder on a new one. Shouldn't be that difficult. Pins are pretty big. It'll still be a challenge, but I think it should be doable. So yeah. And that is the fate of the Sapphire HD 7770 GHz edition. I'm mad. I'm really mad, because when cards die, and I wanna be the one who's responsible and not the card itself. I really don't like it when hardware just dies. Like, from one moment to the next one, just dead. It happened to my 780 Ti, it happened to my 560 Ti 448, now it happened to this card. The 470, that's a different story, that might have been dead from the beginning, I don't know, I didn't test it. So yeah, I think this card is still, if it's the BIOS chip, this card is still savable, but that's gonna take a long, long time. And as it is now, for the third time, me and my friend want to do a project together, and karma just said, how about no? So, yeah, that's really rough. Yeah. So I don't have an HG 7770 anymore, which is why I'm getting myself a new one. So because of this card, like, I didn't modify anything, and I only used the stock, like the overclocking range that AMD gave to you, like to play you with, which is safe, like 1.3 volts V-core. That, like, this card can handle much more than 1.3 volts V-core, and like, yeah. So the card randomly dropping that on me, I decided to be an a-hole kind of thing and just request a uh, request a payback from the eBay seller. No questions asked. I got the money back because the card, like, it pretty much died immediately after I had it. It ran for a bit, and then, like, it gave me my HW bot score, and then it died. And I didn't I didn't modify anything before it was dead. So it's just kind of, yeah. I mean, it feels kind of bad because the card worked for a bit and I overclocked it and then it died. I mean, that feels kind of bad. But, like, logic tells me that, like, the overclocking graphics cards is, like, you can't kill cards by overclocking them if you just do it through software. Like, you're gonna have to do, like, hard mods or flash a overclocking BIOS onto them to even get into dangerous territory, and then, like, yeah. So yeah, I got the money back for the card. And then, yeah, so right now it's a wall ornament, and you might be able to bring it back. I don't really know if it's the BIOS chip. Might be doable. If the memory controller is dead, that's it for the card. Like, if memory chips or memory controller are dead, that's just it. And yeah, so I'm trying to get myself a new HD 7770s, and now where one has died, I'm probably gonna get two just for safety. So yeah. So I guess that's it for the video. It's so bad. The core was so good on the card, and it's just annoying. Like, the card was cheap, and I even got the money back, so it's not really a loss for me. It's just this card was, like, the core was destined for greatness, and now the card is dead. And yeah, I could still try to revive it. That's gonna take a while, and there's no guarantee it's gonna work. I could theoretically steal the VRM off of it. I could just put a hacksaw to the card and have a 3 and a 1 phase VRM just on a board, and I would get all the power I need through the PCI Express slot. Like, this one has 12 volts and 3.3 volts, and the 5 volt LEOs over here, so yeah, it would have all the necessary voltages, so I could just turn it into a power board. But I really would like to save the card. Like, I before I turn it into a power board, I really want to know that the card is dead forever. Like, that there's no chance saving it. And at the moment, I'm still trying to hold on to the BIOS chip thing, or maybe VDDCI voltage will make it run again. Yeah, but yeah, I guess that's it for the video. So yeah, my HG7770 is dead. The one my friend has is fine as far as I know. It arrived now. Like, I don't know what he did with it. Don't think he did anything. But, like, he has his one. It's just now I need a new one. So yeah. But I think I'm stretching this video out too far. So yeah, that's it for the video. Thank you all for watching, and until next time. Goodbye.